How does it feel that you can only see your love when he's trying to kill you?
Um, Sexy. I'm Emmy,
I'm Annie,
and this week we're playing Hades 2.
but before we get into Hades 2, Emmy, would you like to talk about some current gaming news?
I mean, no, because it sucks, but yes, we should.
Yeah, we would like everyone else to feel bad with us. But the biggest thing, at least in our gaming orbits, that we saw in the news this week was that Polygon, the provider of much of our gaming news, has been sold to Valnet, which is a content farm network, and most of the staff has been laid off. It seems only people in the WGA East Union were laid off. So there are only like two employees left, including Maddie Myers. And a really quite good gaming news website and pop culture commentary site is just gutted and dead in the water. And a lot of really good people lost their jobs. And I'm so sad. I'm so sad. And then on the same day, news came out that Giant Bomb was being put on pause in general. They've been sold and gone through cuts in the last couple of years. And then, the remaining content team had been kind of feuding with the owners about what they were doing with the brand. And I'm sitting there like, okay, so what's left then? We have gamesindustry.biz, we have The Verge that sort of focuses on games, but only as part of like a larger tech thing. There's Jason Schreier at Bloomberg. There's one guy who reports on the business of video games, and now what? So that's my depressing intro. I mean, do you know what we do now? Now what?
Oh, we mourn. But I do sort of know what we do now, or at least what I'm going to do now, which is to continue paying money into subscriptions for smaller news organizations run and controlled by people who create the content themselves. So I mean, the Giant Bomb news sucks. Giant Bomb is like a cornerstone of games media that like had a huge influence on how games media content is created now. Like they were sort of the first website to do like a more of a personality based, like lots of video content. And that was in like the early 2000s. Like they have a huge influence on how games media has been for the last like 2 decades, basically, but they have gone through multiple sales over the years, including to CBS and then from CBS to Fandom. As part of that sale, previously, three of the longtime creators from Giant Bomb, which are Vinny Caravella, Alex Navarro, and Brad Shoemaker, left and formed their own startup called Nextlander. And I'm a Nextlander patron. I feel like I get a lot out of being a patron. Like I get 3 podcasts a week and they stream daily. And so I'm really happy that I'm able to like put some money towards something that like one I feel is a really good value for the type of thing I enjoy, but also is able to support something that is run by the people themselves. That said, it's so much work to run your own company, and not everyone has the privilege or like ability to do that. So yeah, I mean, the both the Giant Bomb news and the Polygon news hits hard.
Yeah. It seems like the moral of this story is that money ruins everything, one way or another. Oh, and of course, there's also a GoFundMe, which we'll link for the laid off workers from Polygon. In any case, thankfully, because they were laid off union workers, they have WGA East union members still employed at other parts of the union on the case as well. So hopefully, they're going to get the support they need. I hope that from the ashes of Polygon, either sites like Aftermath can become stronger, even though I know it's a really upward battle, or something else new can rise from the ashes. But it's a larger problem as a whole in media that, one sector of it, video games focused, isn't going to be able to solve. It's okay. I'll scheme. I'll scheme on it and get back to everybody.
Don't worry, Annie will fix it.
So that's it for news, except for I guess that Switch pre-orders have sold out. And I'm sitting here like, how? What, do you mean you guys have money right now?
Yeah, that's not really news for me because I just was like I'm not getting one. I don't have the extra cash to spare on that and I just assumed it would sell out even though like again who's buying it, but also it's Nintendo. It's a new game console.
You know, who am I to judge though? Because I did go and buy the new Zelda amiibo that are coming out as soon as they dropped for pre-orders, except for Yunobo. Except for Yunobo, where is he? And apparently they did pre-orders for him in the UK and Japan, but not the US, so it must be like a tariff thing or something else. And if the only thing keeping my Zelda collection of amiibo from being complete is freaking Yunobo, that's like insult to injury. So that's mostly the news, or at least the news that pertains to us. And on that angry note, let's get into Hades 2. So today we're talking about Hades 2, which is a game that is still in early access and actually has been in early access for a year. So we wanted to celebrate that by giving it its due. We were playing at the time of this recording the Warsong update, which came out in February 2025. So by the time we do release this episode, there may be some update that has been released or even an acknowledgement of the anniversary. So just to be clear, we're playing on the Warsong update for anyone following along. That is all the information we're going to have as we go forward. That being said, spoilers also abound for what is out in the game already. I know there are a lot of people just waiting for the full game to be out, so this may not be your episode if you're waiting, but we will say we've been enjoying it quite a lot, so there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, and maybe when it does come out in its full glory, it will have changed amount, and maybe it'll be fun to come back and listen to this episode and hear about, they did change this thing or they didn't change this thing.
So, for the uninitiated, Hades 2 is the fifth game from independent studio Supergiant, and it's the first sequel that they've ever made. In this case to Hades, a Greek mythology-themed roguelike dungeon crawler, which entered early access in December 2018 and was released in full in September 2020. It was a smash hit. It was named Game of the Year by many publications. Probably its popularity was exacerbated by COVID because we were all sitting on our couches at the time, and I know I spent a lot of lockdown time playing this game. In the original Hades, you play as Zagreus, the son of Hades, attempting to escape the underworld to reunite with his mother on the surface, who he had presumed dead. In Hades 2, which launched into early access last year, you play as Melinoe, Zagreus' sister, who was born after he successfully reunited the family in the first game. But much time has passed, and Melinoe is exiled from her underworld home because the Titan Kronos has risen once again, taken over her father's realm, while simultaneously assaulting the other gods' home on Olympus, and has taken her family prisoner. Raised and trained by the witch goddess Hecate, Melinoe is finally ready to make her way to Tartarus, beat Kronos, and save her family. For a bit about Supergiant, the San Francisco-based studio was founded by Amir Rao and Gavin Simon, two EA veterans, in 2009. They brought on Gen Z as a contractor for their first game, Bastion. To be clear, that is her name, Gen and Z. When you say it out loud now, it just sounds like I'm trying to talk about Zoomers, and no, they brought her on as a contractor for their first game, Bastion, and then soon promoted her to a full-time art director. Other creatives who've been with Supergiant since the beginning are creative director Greg Kosovin, who writes the games, Logan Cunningham, a voice actor who's played a major role in and often narrated each game, Darren Korb, the composer, and Ashley Barrett, the singer. And, of course, Supergiant has grown in size since Bastion, but those core creatives have remained the same throughout each of the games they've made. For my own background, I became a fan of Supergiant after I played Transistor in college. I went on to Bastion and have stayed obsessed since then. To my shame, I have actually not played Pyre. It's been languishing in my Steam account for years, and I've read a lot about the game, watched gameplay, and listened to the music, but I haven't actually played it myself. So when the original Hades was announced for early access, I was on Supergiant's newsletter because I followed their stuff. I decided I wanted to wait for the full game to come out instead of participating in early access, and I have regretted that so much since 2020 when it came out and I realized what I hadn't been part of. So when Hades 2 came out, I resolved not to make that same mistake. Emmy, do you have anything to add about Supergiant Games or your experience with their previous work before we get into the nitty-gritty of Hades 2?
Well, first of all, I just want to give you a shout out for how smooth you remained in that intro while I dribbled huge rivulets of hot chocolate down my face at the same time. Did you notice that?
I noticed and I decided to ignore it. So
Thank
thank
you for
you.
that. Um, anyways, I know, I'm not gonna say I know a lot about Supergiant. What I will say is most of what I know about Supergiant is because you are a Supergiant super fan, despite your shame at not having played Pyre. So I played. I'm trying to remember if I finished Transistor. I might have. It was during that period of college when I didn't really have a great way to play it. So I think I played it on like a laptop, which maybe just wasn't a great way to play it, and I still played a fair amount of it. And then really my Supergiant introduction was playing Hades when it came into full access and being just absolutely utterly deranged about it and feeling so obsessed with it, where we talked about, I think in the first episode, about like our relationship to sort of like fandoms and how I'm often not that involved with like online fandom content for whichever games, but one of the ones that I felt like I really was connected to like the community about it was Hades. And I think part of it was because we were both playing it and you were sending me a lot of excellent content about it.
Because I couldn't stop consuming it either, you know? Like, I would play the game and then I would hop onto Twitter where I was following a ton of fan artists who were also obsessed. And I would love to link them actually in the show notes. Anyway, there was much coming out of the fandom aspect. It was definitely like a sense of community at a high that I'll be chasing. And hopefully, when Hades 2 reaches the rest of the public, it'll explode just the same way. But it's been fun to be part of just the Discord or looking at the Steam forums in the meantime for people who are tinkering with it now.
I was just thinking that I feel a little sad that I don't know that Hades 2, I think it will be just as popular overall, but I don't think it will have that like cultural zeitgeist moment in the same way just because Hades was in early access for a while. There are certainly people who were like fans of Supergiant that were playing it early access, but I think there's now such a huge contingent of people who Hades was their first Supergiant fan, and so now they're playing Hades 2 in early access. I don't know that we'll get the same sharp, like, oh, its full release has like exploded into the
Mm.
public consciousness. And so I very much still hope that happens, but like I don't know that it will be to quite the same fervor that like Hades was. Just from the like sort of early access full release, I think there's probably a lot more people playing in early access now because they're so excited about Hades 2. But so that makes me a little sad. But I shouldn't be pessimistic to assuming that. But maybe I'll just rely on you to send me fan art and then it'll be fine.
And you know I will. Uh, I don't know. I am bad at predicting this type of thing because this is the first time I've ever been part of an early access game. So, when the game was announced at the Game Awards in 2022, Emmy, what was your reaction?
I don't really remember. I think I like in like from like 2019 to 2021, I feel like I was super on top of like gaming news and I would like watch gaming events as they were happening. And then after that, I started to get a little bit more like I just hear about it on a podcast or whatever a week or two later. And so I don't remember my exact experience, but I assume there's no way you didn't text me to be like Hades 2.
I did. I remember it pretty viscerally because when the Game Awards were happening in 2022, I was at a bar listening to my friend's band do a show.
That's very cool
And
of you.
yeah, so cool. You just do little
Very
bar.
cool and sexy of you.
Thank you. I think so too. But I wasn't paying any attention to the opening acts because I was paying attention to Game Awards news. And when 82 news popped up, I like shrieked. Not that loudly, you know, like there were performers going on. Started excitedly poking my friends at the table, like, oh my god, guys.
You gave
No,
a respectful shriek.
yeah, two of them had no freaking idea what I was talking about. One of them was like, cool, and then kept watching the show. And then I think I texted everybody I knew. And then I went through a brief stage of despair because Supergiant doesn't do sequels and previously had talked quite a bit about how they were never going to do a sequel for the money. And it did for a second feel like, oh, so now that you've had this huge hit for the first time, you're doing a sequel? And then I got over it pretty fast because I was like, no, I mean, I personally trust this creative team. It's not really my business to decide what they get to do with their creativity. And if they want to keep playing in this world, then that's great and I'll just follow them there. So I don't even really view it as a money grab, even though a lot of people accused them of that when the news came out. Because also they've clearly been cooking on it for quite a long time. Like that news came out in 2022, 2 years after Hades released, and then it didn't actually make it to early access when a lot of it was very playable and beautiful till 2024. And we don't actually know when the full game will come out anyway. So it wasn't clearly like a let's make this quick and ship it out to ride the high of Hades in any way. So that was how I remember all of that going down. And I don't remember who the opening acts were or anything else about that night. It was Hades 2 night. I'm sure my friend's band was good though.
I think I also went into a brief period of depression that I quickly got over about it. More in the sense about it being in early access, because I was pretty sure at that time that I wouldn't play it in early access and that I would wait for the full release. And that was my plan. And then I started getting jealous of the other people who were playing it in early access, Annie. And so I think part of the reason I don't remember that much about it being announced is just because I was like, I'm so excited. And also like, it will take a while and I don't get to like play it for a while, which is, is fine. But like the way I'm going to deal with that is by not engaging a lot in it, because it's just going to make me really want to play it and like not be able to wait as well. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to like sort of set it aside in my brain until I can play it.
And then the FOMO got to you.
And then the FOMO got to me, as it often does.
Mm-hmm. In this case, I'm perfectly fine with FOMO getting to people. The more the merrier.
Like I said, my plan wasn't originally to play in early access because I think I mentioned this before, I usually don't play games in early access. I like to see it when it's sort of cooked completely. And I think playing this has changed my mind about it a little bit, because I have really been enjoying the experience of seeing how it changes, and like when something new is released, that's also very exciting. So I think it's trade-offs of like, oh, this is like the fully formed thing, it's like been polished for everything. Although, to be very clear, like Hades 2 has been extremely polished throughout early access. There's just been like, clearly there's like placeholder art sometime. And it's been really fun to see what that art becomes, because it's also something that I think you take for granted sometimes with a fully released game, of like before they added art for many pieces, like the game was still definitely fully playable, but it was like, there's just a general icon for trinkets, for example. And then they released the update that had the specific art for the trinkets, and I was like, oh, that's like such a nice thing, and it's something I would have taken for granted in the full release, versus like I was totally fine with them being individual icons. I like wasn't even thinking about it as needing art, and then it's like, oh, that's like a really nice touch, and it's nice to see the individualized like thematic versions of these things. And it's really cool to see like having a sketch in place. So like some of the character portraits would go from like a robed figure, and there's still a couple of them in the game, to being a sketch, to being the fully realized character portrait. And I think that's also been a really fun experience to see that develop. And so I think at least in this case, I've been really enjoying being along for the ride of seeing how it changes. And I thought I would feel a little bit more upset about like, oh, they nerfed my whatever build. But like, honestly, it's been fine because I found something else that felt really good.
It is really cool to see first off, how things like builds can get balanced through player feedback throughout. And it makes me appreciate the original Hades so much more as well, because part of the reason that game is so satisfying is that the gameplay really is so beautiful and fluid and well balanced. Like, there are lots of different builds to choose from, and they can all work if you want them to. And that couldn't have happened without the time and resources for this team to cook, for getting that feedback and polishing it to something perfect before it arrives in front of the general public. It also makes me realize too, well, I mean, like, I write, and I also try to draw. I'm not very good. And so much of writing anything creative is really messy steps before it comes together. And sometimes seeing like a big product out there from creatives you admire, you look at that and forget that they go through those steps too. You're kind of sitting there waiting for the day when your work will come out like perfect and beautiful first try, and it doesn't for anybody. So it's been really cool to see that evolution from not exactly the inside, because obviously neither of us are the developers on this, but to see that process firsthand, making me feel a little better that my stuff takes time and also can be a mess before it's not. I also really enjoyed that they are taking like player feedback for real. I was looking at the Steam forums before this just on earlier updates, and I mean, I sent you the link to this. They were talking about the shading on the portraits, specifically
Mm-hmm.
like the difference between Hades shading and how they're going about it for this game, which definitely is, it is more like moon bright because the moon goddess Selene is a big part of this game. And from the time of that particular criticism and the updates we've seen now, the character portraits actually have been updated with more dramatic shading. Maybe not inspired by that particular comment, but others that people were giving. And it is really beautiful to see that, again, given time and the feedback, it could be made even better in ways that I hadn't even considered, actually, because I had looked at that portrait and I was like, that's nice, and kept going. But now it's even nicer, and I appreciate how much work went into making it nicer. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So, Emmy, would you like to get into how we've been playing since it's been early access? How have you kept up with the updates? Because I've been pretty bad at it, actually.
Hmm. It's been interesting. And I also credit it being in early access with like me playing the game a little bit more continuously versus how
Mm.
I think I would have played it. I think I would have really binged it um in full release and then like played all the way through the story and then been done. And in early access, it's not really possible to play all the way through the story because it hasn't that and I don't know the extent to
Mm.
which it's because it's not finished, like the content actually isn't finished yet, or if they're sort of intentionally holding off on that.
I do know, at least for, well, there's a message that plays when you get through to beating Kronos that says, and we're hiding this one from you for full release. Like, that one straight up says,
Oh, okay, does
you
it
don't get to know.
specifically say that?
Yep.
So that's been sort of nice because it's led to me like coming back because I there is a similar mechanic in Hades 2 as the so you could add heat in Hades 1 and I didn't do a whole lot of that because I was like, well, I've sort of played through and there is a similar mechanic in Hades 2 and I've been doing a lot more of that as updates come out. So I did still have like an initial binge of like this is all I'm playing and like all I'm doing right now and I probably played like 80 hours of that. Put it down for a while and then when the Olympus update came out, that is when I got back into it and I played another probably 20 hours. I think especially I was traveling around that time. So I played a lot like on a plane and then put it down again. And then with the Warsong update and us doing this episode, picked it up a little bit more.
You were better at this than I was. Well, I mean, for the first Hades, I binged it for the story and then also got really into playing it on higher levels of heat, specifically because you don't get anything for this, but there are statues you can unlock for
Mm-hmm.
doing it at certain levels of difficulty. And I was really determined to beat it at like 32 heat, and then I think I kept going for a little bit after that. So that was 225 to 250 hours of my life. And then for this one, yes, when it came out initially in early access, I played it for a couple of months just nonstop. I remember even I took a train to St. Louis in July for a wedding, and I brought my laptop and my Switch controller with me, like my my Pro controller, and I just sat there like, with my laptop in front of me and a controller playing.
I constantly forget that you don't have a Steam Deck because I think you would enjoy it so much. I just wasn't in my head. I was like, it has been so integral that I've been playing it on Steam Deck that I just didn't even think about the fact that you're playing it on laptop.
I am playing it on my laptop, which I hook up to my TV a lot of the time if I'm home. But no, I've been, when I'm really in gremlin mode, I will lay in bed with my laptop wheezing on my lap because it's like too hot.
Oh, the laptop is wheezing. Yeah. I thought you said that you're wheezing.
No, the laptop is wheezing because it's overheating, and I'm like sitting there with my Pro controller going, please, like just another 20 minutes before you maybe die. Yeah, that's how I've been playing because I don't have a Steam Deck and early access is only on PC, so far as we know. And I did play Hades, the original, on my Switch, which I know had some, not runtime difficulties, you know what I mean? It just couldn't handle it sometimes, but I never had that many issues, even when there was a lot going on. The graphics just were a little less crisp than they might have been on a PS4.
Yeah. Do you think it'll come to Switch too when it's in full release? I feel like those releases line up pretty well with each other.
Yeah, I feel like that's a given. In any case, after the initial binge, the Olympus update came out, and I forget what was going on in my life at the time, but I mostly just saw the announcement and thought, cool, and then I didn't go back and play it, and I didn't start playing again until Warsong update, which is why there are certain bosses I've just not gotten to yet because I'm playing catch up. I was cramming for the exam this week before we recorded.
So I think I heard about the Olympus update from you, and I don't do a great job of keeping up with it anyways. And I was like, okay, sweet, I should go play this because I bet Annie will and we'll want to talk about it. So it's funny that you didn't play it.
Call me Hermes.
Other thing is... Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I feel like you were going to say a good joke. Say your joke.
I was going to say, call me Hermes because I deliver things and then run away.
It
wasn't that good. Continue.
I thought it was good. Yeah, I remember us talking about pre-Olympus update, Eris in Hades 2. This is where, we're getting to mechanic spoilers here. You can go deeper, because you're in the crossroads, which is
you're on
like...
the surface, essentially.
Yeah, so you're on the surface, but like kind of. So you can go deeper down into Hades, trying to get there to kick Kronos out. Or you unlock this, I don't know, a ways through. You don't have to beat Kronos to unlock it.
You don't have to beat Kronos to unlock it, which I know because I didn't beat Kronos for a long time. But yeah, the whole issue with Zagreus in the first game is that as a child of the underworld, he can't survive on the surface. Melinoe has this same issue, but then in Hades 2, the gods from Olympus, being under assault from Kronos, ask her to help on the surface, and after a while you gain enough resources to cast a witchy spell to allow yourself to survive on the surface. So then there's an option to go toward Olympus and try to save them.
Yes. So for a long time before the Olympus update, there were only 2 regions, which I want to talk about how they've expanded sort of the structure of a region too. But so there's 2 regions. One is like a kind of fun marketplace where you're picking amongst several different rewards. Like you see a bunch at the same time and you have to pick like of which 5 of like, I don't know, 9, something like that you want to do. And then there's another region, and the guardian, the boss of that region, is Eris, the incarnation of strife. And she's so... I think they've made her easier.
I think they have as well, because I literally couldn't beat her until this update.
Yeah, so I think they made her easier, and I wonder how much of that was in response to feedback and how much of it was like, well, this is all you have for right now. We're going to make it really fucking hard to get past it because you can't go anywhere after that. So I think I beat her once or twice before the Olympus update, and I beat her before you did. And I was like, fuck yeah. It felt so good. And I think I beat her like on a plane too. So I was like, yes.
She's such a little jerk. Do you know, by the way, Eris's Greek mythology basis at all?
Nope. Here's a know-it-all, know-it-none
Uh,
situation once again.
yes. So Eris is the reason that the Trojan War happened. As the myth goes, she is a goddess of strife and discord. She wanted to cause some trouble because why not? And so she threw a golden apple labeled for the fairest onto, like, the dining table of the gods and goddesses, and immediately three goddesses start fighting over who it's for. And Aphrodite is like, obviously, I'm the fairest. Athena is like, sorry, I'm the fairest. And then I think it was Hera. Yeah, Hera was the other one who's like, I'm the fairest. And I could be getting that wrong. I know it's three goddesses. Anyway, they're squabbling, and then they decide to turn to mortal heroes to decide who is actually the fairest. I don't remember why, but they picked Paris of Troy to be the deciding vote, and they all started trying to bribe him. Then Aphrodite promises Paris that if he picks her, then he can have the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, who is Helen. And Helen is already married, but that doesn't matter. So then essentially, yeah, they fall in love because he picks Aphrodite, because that's the most tempting offer, and he kidnaps Helen to Troy, and that means that everybody else in Greece raises their armies to sail to Troy to fight against him to get Helen back, and then a lot of tragedy ensues. So that's why every time you beat one of the guardians of a region, so Eris is the guardian of the river of Thessaly, you get a particularly rare and useful like item, and for her it's golden apples. So that's why. This also relates because Odysseus is a main character in this game. He's a tactician and an advisor who lives at the crossroads. She's the whole reason that he went to war and then had his whole odyssey of getting back home. He also mentions that during his travels, he stayed with a goddess named Circe, and Circe also shows up in the river of Thessaly. And I'm curious to see how their interactions will play out, because during the Odyssey, she turned his whole crew into pigs, and then he had to bargain to get them back, and then he ended up dating Circe for a while before they decided to leave. So
it's so funny to refer to it as dating.
Well, what else? Like, I don't know, they were lovers.
Yeah, they were lovers.
So yes, that's Eris and her background. I'm excited also, just as they pop up, to give you a little more background on certain characters as well, because there are a few other little triangles formed by their interactions as we go.
Yeah, I have like a very general knowledge of Greek mythology from like freshman year English or whatever. I'm not as deeply knowledgeable as you, certainly, about it, and so sometimes I do feel like I'm not missing out, but like not appreciating enough some of the subtle references that are being made, like Eris's reward being golden apples. I was like, I know that there's a connection here, I just don't know what it is.
And now you know.
And now I know.
I think in some ways it not harms me a bit to like know a lot about the stories, but sometimes I wish I didn't, because then I wouldn't be critical about how I think they're going about portraying it. And it's not even in an accuracy way, but more in a like
your headcanon of Greek mythology.
Yeah, it's interfering with my headcanons. But there are some that I really enjoy, and also very clearly they've done their research. We will talk a bit more about character designs and character favorites later, but first I wanted to talk about gameplay mechanics, specifically the structure of the game and like what weapons we've been choosing as we fight through, and then we can also get into gods and their boons. So in this game, as in Hades, you are thrown into a region where you have an encounter with various monsters, and once that encounter is complete, then you normally have a choice of which quote-unquote direction to go, usually by which power-up you'd choose to gain from the next encounter. And then after a certain number of encounters in a region, you reach the guardian of a region, and then if you beat them, you can pass on to the next region, and so on until you beat the final boss, and that is a victory as a run, and you then repeat. So you can die at any time during this, by the way, and then you have to start from the beginning. And in this game, like we said, there are two paths that you can take. You can either head down to Tartarus to defeat Kronos, or you can head up to Olympus to try to save the other gods. In this game, you have very similar power-ups, and there's also very similar movesets that you have. You have a basic attack, you have a special, you have a cast, and you can dash. In this game, they altered the cast so that it covers an area. Instead, it used to be something that you like shot a projectile, and instead of just a dash, you can also sprint, which, by the way, is something that I have been forgetting to do. Me getting good at this game mostly included me remembering I should sprint so that I don't get hit. And there are also various other things that they introduced that make things a little more interesting and complicated this time around. So, Emmy, how have you been playing the game so far with these new mechanics? Which ones do you like? What's your favorite weapon? Let's go from there.
Okay, that's so many questions that I will talk about for an hour, but I
Okay,
want
so
to mention about the sprinting that I also struggled with that. I was really frustrated at first that there were a number of boons about sprinting that didn't apply to dashing, and there were very few dash boons, and so even still, like when I do remember to to sprint, I still generally prefer to dash, because it's hard to just like be moving around that much and also fighting. And I think they did change that so that a number it might be more specific than that, but a number of the sprint boons now also apply to dashes, and I was like, yay, I'm happy. But yeah, I like different weapons for different purposes, and I usually play. I'm curious how much you switch weapons or not, because I switch weapons every single run depending on there's an incantation you can do where it gives you extra bones, basically, which you can use to trade for resources, and I don't really need that many bones, but at the point in the game where I am, where it's like, I don't need these other resources you can sort of gather as much. I just will use it as a way to like mix things up, and I'll just pick whichever one is giving you extra bones, which I think Schmelius, is that his name?
Skelemius.
This Skelemius, not Schmelius. Skelemius. That makes a lot more sense. Skelemius, the skeleton that you can beat up and train with, who he's the same guy from Hades, right?
Yeah, he's a general now.
Yeah.
Previously, he was the lowly Skelly. Now he has elevated himself to General Skelemius.
Great. Okay. I think that I was like, I don't think that was his name before, but it made sense that he has elevated himself.
Yes.
He's decorated now.
And actually, if you run into your father Hades in chains in Tartarus, which is where he hangs out now, against his will, if you mention Skelemius being helpful, he's like, who's that? And it's because he doesn't know that Skelly renamed himself.
He's reinvented himself in the crossroads. But yeah, so he actually mentions that. I don't know if it was a new addition of dialogue, but he's like, oh, you should like, when you're not sure which weapon to choose, like, choose the one that, like, works this way, or choose the one that you like, or if all else fails, pick the one that gives you more bones. Yep. That's what I do. But overall, I'm happiest when I get the most bones from the daggers. I particularly like the aspect. So you can acquire different arms, and then the daggers are, I don't know if they're locked right away, or they might be the second one that you unlock, or the first one you unlock, rather. They might be available right away. You can also unlock different aspects of the weapons that give you different powers, and so the one I really like for the daggers is your special, which is like a projectile dagger throw. You can fire up to, I think, 7. It'll fire at a fan pattern. The one that I like is that if you have foes in your that cast area, and then you fire your specials auto target the foes in the cast. So that's what I like to play the most. And then the other one I really like is the axe, which I know you love the axe, but I love the aspect of Charon axe specifically, where if you have foes again in your cast, because I use the cast a lot, and then hit your fully powered up special against the cast, your cast will erupt and do a burst of damage. So generally your like Omega, your fully powered up cast, it will do a burst of damage at the end, which causes a fair amount of damage. And so you can just do like a quick cast without having to use the like mana and then power up your special to hit it and explode it. Both of these strategies work really well with my favorite boon, which is Prominence Flare from Apollo, which is a
it's
cast.
So good.
Yeah, it's a cast boon, which I think you might have to have. I still haven't gotten the spell that shows you how to get all of the boons, but I think you might have to
Hmm.
have like at least 2 Apollo boons for it to become available. It used to be like pretty readily available, and I would always like try to refresh my options to get it. But basically, it does repeated bursts of damage from your cast, and so I will do that with the axe and just decimate
Just
people.
annihilate. That sounds so
And I
good.
used to, yeah, really love the axe before the Olympus update because it used to give you a shield. And
Hmm.
then that's an interesting update is that you can't shield with the axe anymore, but there is a new weapon that has a shield for its powered up attack.
Which I haven't unlocked yet. I think because I need a golden apple or a feather or something. I can't. So
It's really good. It
I'm really
makes you
excited.
so fast. You can like I've powered up one of the aspects of it and it makes you so fast and the shield is great and I beat Eris most of the time with that.
Having a shield with her must be incredible. I have a couple things I want to say. First, with the casts, I really like the new cast option rather than the projectiles, which I would often forget I had in the previous game.
I forgot that there was a cast until you just said that because I
Yeah.
used it so rarely in Hades.
Meanwhile, in this game, you basically need to get good with using the cast if you want to survive because the fights are so much more swarm based in this game than they used to be, and you are definitely going to become overwhelmed if you don't do the cast, which has a function of sort of holding enemies in place slash slowing them down. And if you power it up, then it often does a lot of damage to a bunch of foes at once, like you were describing. So it's useful in those swarm situations.
You can stack boons on your
Yes.
cast too.
I love the cast. I love especially, I like, for example, the Aphrodite boon that powers up your cast, so it draws them in and weakens them. So if you have any other area of effect attacks, you could just do it right there. Of course, the Prominence Flare, that one is so good. And then if you get another boon that makes your cast expand in size before it expires, that one also goes crazy. So there were certain times where I have only made it through basically like just kind of setting my cast and running away. And that does all of the damage I could possibly need to do for the run. I also love the axe. It's my favorite. Similar to I really loved the sword in the previous game. They're both very similar in that they're huge slow weapons that do like a big burst of damage when you actually hit. I use the Thanatos aspect a lot, actually. If you hit enemies a lot without getting hit yourself, it stacks crit chance. And so yeah, that's really working for me. Also, it looks like a huge scythe, which is awesome.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed slicing Kronos to pieces with a scythe because he also wields one. And that fun fact is actually in like the big, Titans versus Gods war that got Kronos sealed away in Greek mythology in the first place. That is what they did. Like Zeus and his other sons sliced up Kronos with his own scythe and then threw him into the depths of Tartarus.
I cannot for the life of me use the axe like normal because
Mhm.
I wouldn't do well with Thanatos either because I get hit all the time. Yeah, it's too slow for me. And then I feel like that's why I like the daggers is they're really fast.
I do like the daggers too. I have not been able. I mean, I also switch between weapons based on which one will give me more bones to the run because I'm poor in the game right now and I need bones. But I hate the torches. There are these
Oh,
torches.
I
They're
hate the
modeled.
torches. I
They're
forgot
modeled
about
after
them.
Hecate's weapons. Like that's what she's the first guardian of the first area, and she has these torch weapons. I cannot for the life of me make them work for me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I should read more about builds, but I dread that being the one that has the bones on it.
Yeah, I hate the torches. I also do not like the like skull gun.
Oh yeah, the rail replacement. I want my rail back. So in the previous game, the machine gun option was called the rail, and now Eris has it. That's the weapon that she fights you with. So another reason to hate Eris, down with Eris. Yeah, I have had some good times with the skull shooting thing, but overall I don't ever really reach for it. I mostly bounce between the axe and the daggers. Lim and Oros. I don't remember all the weapons' names. I just remember that one a lot because she says it all the time.
I was really successful on a recent run with the staff, which is your first weapon. I have it maxed out the aspect of Melinoe.
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 which I can only
But
pronounce
like
because
that's not how
Hecate's
they
always
say
saying it.
it.
It
But she
is.
says Malinois.
Melanoe? I thought they always... Are we just hearing it different?
I don't know. Mel. I do really like
Mel.
that both Zach and Mel have 3-letter nicknames
It's cute. We'll just
of
call her
their
Mel.
longer Malinois. Yeah, so the aspect of Mel has makes your Omega, the fully charged, moves faster. And
Mm.
so I was really successful, like just like hitting enemies over and over again with her powered up attack, which just does like a straight line of damage, especially with
Mm.
the Apollo. But I my automatic trinket that I always have is the Apollo trinket because I really like Prominence Flare, and then any of those that make your attack bigger and stronger, and same thing for your specials,
Mm.
is great.
I have been swapping through trinkets to power them up. So in the game, if you give nectar to a god, another character, whatever, the first time they'll trade you a trinket which you can equip, and then it'll give you some power up as you go for the gods. Usually it will make sure that the first boon that you get is from that god, and then you have the chance to increase the rarity of the boon as you go at one point over the night. When I do reach for a boon, right now I've been trying to up the Hestia one, but usually I go for Hephaestus. I love that man. All of his power-ups just make like a huge devastating blow that goes with your normal attack, and then it charges up and then happens again. And then you can get power-ups that, like, as you level them up, it'll take less time to recharge, and it's really satisfying to hit somebody and then have a Festus like come down and take his hammer and kill them for you.
Yeah, I think I've mostly been Apollo. Usually my order will be the Apollo trinket, the Selene trinket, and which gives you so another introduction to this game
Yes.
is Selene's moon hexes. I think there's a total of 5 maybe to pick from, and there's 2 that I always go for. I used to always go for the one that restores health, and that you can power up by getting, so all of them you can power up by basically getting her boon type thing again, and it will have like a skill tree basically, and that you can power up to sometimes be like it refreshes. You only have 3 at the start, and then it refreshes whenever you reach a fountain. There is one power up that you sometimes get from that where those can stack, and so I have had runs where I've had like 10 options in the final boss to restore a significant amount of health.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah. So like if you're like have a good enough build that you can make it through without using them, you can stack it pretty high to like, in addition to having a bunch of death defiances, to like basically brute force your way through a final boss. And so usually I will do that, or I will do, on your recommendation, which has been a huge game changer for me, hacks where you just shoot a very powerful beam.
I love the laser.
It's just a laser. And that also you can power up to be stronger. And then my favorite power up is that one of those is that it will aim on its own. So you can just like
That one's good.
initiate it and then like leave it while it hits someone with a laser, instead of, you're sort of vulnerable when you're controlling it because someone can attack you and you'll end it if you move. So usually I'll pick one of those 2, have the moon trinket to try and power it up as much as possible. The other boons I really like are from Aphrodite generally, because I like healing and improving my healing. There's a really good one that also is a little bit, I think you can only get if you have at least 1 or 2 of her boons, is refilling all of your health when you leave if you're at least at like 70% health or 80% health. That one's very good.
Oh, I never have enough health. I don't know. You're gonna have to teach me your ways on doing healing builds, because never in my life have I tried one. And I'm not about to start now unless I get some advice. Well, this is why, for example, I missed Dionysus from the previous game. He had basically like a poison stacking effect, and it has been sort of replaced by Hestia, who has a burning effect in this game. But I just think I sit there going damage, damage, damage. And also like dodge, dodge, dodge if I can. Aphrodite I normally add in there for the weakening effect, because as you get further into each level, the damage that the foes do is getting untenable. Like, that's why I haven't made it up to Olympus yet. But for the hex, I love my laser as well. I'm glad you've adopted this. Do you also do the power up that splits it in three?
Sometimes.
Yeah, that one is my favorite actually, because I'm like, I'm okay with aiming as long as I've got three lasers to aim with.
Yeah, I mean it auto aims pretty well, I think. So I don't care as much about the three because usually it's useful in regular battles. I sort of forget about it often during the battles, especially because I've trained myself not to trigger the hex with the healing one because you don't want to accidentally trigger it and you're like, well now I have one fewer left for the boss fight.
Yeah.
But those are the only two I use. I don't really like any of the other ones.
My other go-to, I don't really do the healing one, is I forget if it's the one called Wolf-like Howls or like Wolf Howl. That one you pick an area and then after 4 seconds, and the time can go down, after 4 seconds, the moon crashes down. Wolf Howls is when you crash down. There's a couple others.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
Any of the ones that have a delayed time effect is really hard for me because I'm just like, I don't know where someone's going to be because I rely on them the most during the boss fights and they're moving around a lot. So it's probably good for crowd control, but I have a hard time with it otherwise.
That is a good point. I do better with it. Like, for example, for Eris, that fight, the moon crashing down one is kind of hard because there is a delay, but usually if you power up your cast enough, and this is what works for me, there's some effect that you have on there where you're slowing down or holding an enemy back more. And so my strat with that is cast, moon, wait, blam.
I think I also just really struggle to aim the area. Same thing with, like, I really don't like the boons. I think Hestia has one and Zeus has one where your cast becomes like you can choose where to put it instead of it being around you, and I hate those because I really struggle to control the like circle moving around.
Yeah, for me that's been okay because it gives like a slow-mo effect when you aim that type of thing enough that it makes it easy enough for me, but I also get avoiding that. I avoid anything that changes the shape of an attack from what I'm used to. There's a Hera boon that does that for your like Omega moves. It like opens up a rift instead or something, and I don't need that.
Oh, that one's pretty good because it just does it in addition.
Are you sure?
Yes, I just used it.
Okay, maybe I'll try it again. But yeah, anything that changes the shape of how I'm used to it going, I can't do that because so much of this is on like muscle memory and instinct as well.
Yeah, I also really like some of the Demeter boons. She has also some good cast ones. That's if I don't have the Apollo one, I will look for hers because it will have like a cyclone that also draws in and damages enemies on your cast.
Right. She also has some interesting duo boons. Like there's one with either Hestia or one of the other gods where if you have if you have Scorch going on an enemy and then you freeze them from a Demeter boon, then it automatically does all of the damage from the Scorch. And then you can do it again.
Yeah, I've used that one.
It's so good. You were mentioning the dash. You know what I'm thinking of and would like to have a moment of silence for? Doesn't have to be silence. Athena's Divine Dash.
Yep, I use that 100% of the time in Hades, and that's where I was really missing dash boons.
Yeah, because Athena's Divine Dash, the best and only dash in the game to me, would reflect projectiles as you went. I swear to God, they just took her. Athena isn't in this game. Did they just take her out because of that? Oh wait.
She is in this game. Oh. She's on Olympus. Yeah.
Cool.
So
is she mad at me?
Is Dionysus. Dionysus is, well, he's a like non-boon helpful character where like you go into the specific chamber and can get a boon from him, and he is in a leopard print speedo.
Oh my God, Emmy.
And he's so much less hot because of it.
Come on. What, does he still have his thigh circlet?
I don't think so. Just a huge bulge that frankly makes me uncomfortable.
I was so in love with Dionysus last game. He was my favorite.
He was so hot, and now he's just like wasted constantly in a room. And
I can fix him.
Do you want... I can fix him. But yeah, and then Athena looks rad as hell. Because all the gods are like in their more like wartime apparel, so they've got more
Hmm.
like armor on and stuff. And so she will show up and give a very helpful boon, which is she will refill all of your used death defiances. But she doesn't show up that often, and you can get her trinket, which does, I think, anywhere. If you have no death defiances left, she might show up. So I'm trying to power that one up right now so I
I
can
could
see her more
cry.
often.
Well, in that
But
case,
I don't think she has Divine Dash in this one, though, unfortunately.
Divine Dash, you will always be famous. I remember. Yeah, there are three trinkets that I'm missing, and I'm assuming they're from any gods that I might encounter on Olympus, because for the full disclosure, the farthest I've gotten is I've beaten Kronos down in Tartarus a couple times now. Fuck you, Grandpa, is how I feel about that. Then for Olympus, I've gotten past Eris. That brings you to an area that's like climbing the mountain to Olympus, and I died pretty much immediately upon reaching that point. I know that Prometheus is the boss of that area, and then once you get to Olympus, I have no freaking idea what happens.
Have you seen images of Prometheus
I
yet?
have.
He's so good.
Is this one of your crushes for the game? Prometheus?
I love it. I love that he's like befriended the falcon that was picking out his innards and they fight together. And sometimes the falcon shows up and fucks you up on the mountain,
Ah,
which is very annoying. And yeah, I think I've beaten Prometheus maybe 3 times, but not often. I've beaten Kronos many times at this point, but Prometheus is still tricky. Right now I'm sort of, as I said, working my way through the like adding difficulty, but I might just for fun to like beat him again because he's kicking my ass with the nightmare stuff right now. I've gotten close but haven't managed it. I might for fun just to be able to beat him again, take that off and just beat him up so I can.
how does it feel that you can only see your love when he's trying to kill you?
Um, Sexy.
Yeah, that's true. The second I asked the question, I was like, why am I even not considering?
Speaking of being in love, do we want to talk a little bit about other characters?
Oh, for sure. Well, also, speaking of being in love, I actually wanted to tell you a little bit about how fun it is that Prometheus is part of this in terms of the know-it-all, know-it-none situation. Prometheus was a Titan, and I don't know how much he talks about this once you get the dialogue with him, but he was a Titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans. And so he was punished for that by getting chained to a rock and having his liver eaten every day by the falcon in question, and then it would regrow and then it would happen again. The other punishment he got, actually, and I forget timeline wise if this was, it must have been before they chained him to a rock. The gods at first pretended that they were cool with what Prometheus did, and then all together worked to create a perfect wife for him, like a lovely woman with all of the like beautiful attributes that you could want, like graceful, good at the arts, etc. And
A
they
perfect
also
woman.
the perfect woman, whatever other shades you want, think of them, they're there. And then they also gave her a very, very, very strong sense of curiosity. And then the other thing they gave her was a box. And they said, "Hey, Pandora," because that was her name, "this box is yours. You're just not allowed to open it. Anyway, go be a wife to Prometheus now." And so they lived among humans, and things were fine for a while until Pandora, as she had been set up to do, opened the box the gods gave her and outflew every ill that there has ever been in society. Like all the sadness and the illness and all of it gets to the people. And then this isn't always in there, but sometimes it's said that there was one tiny, tiny quote unquote good thing left in the box, which was hope, which gives humans the strength to get through all of those ills, or in other
That seems
ways.
too nice of the gods to have actually done that.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes people say actually to have given people hope was another fuck you to humans, because then they sit there hoping that things might get better and then they don't. So that's Pandora. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if how far you are into the game has revealed this yet, but I'm pretty sure that there's a shade in the Crossroads who goes by Dora, who doesn't talk much about her past life, but is more like sentient than the other shades. And I'm pretty sure that's Pandora.
I think so too. They haven't revealed anything yet, but there are definitely other hints about where it's like implied that she's very, very, very old. And it's interesting. I knew like each of these things separately about Prometheus and Pandora, and I did not know that they were married. And now I want them to kiss.
But you first. You get to kiss
No,
Prometheus
no,
first.
I want no, never me. Never me. Unless they're chronically single and like
Hmm.
truly even then, I think it's never me. I want to be in love with them as they are in love with their perfect match.
Oh, that's fair. Well, then, in that case, if you can't kiss Prometheus, who would you kiss this game? We've already discussed. I think I know who you might say.
Moros. Yeah. And mostly just Moros, I think.
Hmm.
And Odysseus. Odysseus is pretty hot, but like he's a little bit too much of a fuckboy, I think. Moros is like very upstanding.
It's so funny, but with portraying Odysseus as a fuckboy, like he is in the myths for sure. But so far as he's talked about it, I feel like they've softened him.
Yeah, it feels like he's like, yeah, I've just gone my separate way from my wife and, it's all good.
Yeah, I'm wondering where Penelope is in all this, where Telemachus, his son, is. But we do know that is it two of his past loves are in the game? Circe shows up. He mentions
Yeah.
Calypso. We don't run into Calypso. And he talks a lot about how he has a weakness for witches. And I'm like, oh man, you put Odysseus, the weakness for witches man, in a game about witches? What could possibly happen here? I have a big crush on Odysseus as well, though. I understand having a crush on Moros. Like, I ship him and Mel because you can, like, up their relationship and it seems like they would date. But for me, he's too gentle and polite. And he's just kind of lost because normally he's hanging out with the Fates and he knows everything that's going on, and now that he doesn't know, what? You look
This is
contemplative.
interesting to me. I think I would have thought that you would be really into him, but I guess because he's soft. You like a sad boy who's hard, not like a soft sad boy,
Yeah,
I
he just
guess.
needs to have a little more bite to him, and he doesn't. That's why Thanatos was good. He was such a tsundere. Like
Yeah.
not to use that to use.
Tsundere.
It's literally what it is, though, right? Like, how else do you describe it?
You're slamming your fist on the
I'm so
table and
sorry.
ruining our audio
I'm
quality.
so sorry. I'm
It's
so
okay,
sorry.
you're just passionate.
I am, but seriously, there's
Um,
like no other way. It's the perfect word to sum it up.
he is a tsundere. Which I guess is also why you like Nemesis as well.
Nemesis is great. She's also so hot.
I'm not that into Nemesis. She is hot, but I I don't know why I'm not that into her. I also am not even that into her and Mel, which like
Hmm.
I should be because I love like a rivals to lovers story, and I love like a muscle mommy, which Nemesis definitely is. I think it doesn't feel that passionate between the two
Mm,
of them for some reason to me. Whereas like Moros and Mel feel a little bit more like it's like a Regency romance where they're
it
like
is.
falling in love with each other in a very proper way, and I do sort of love that. But of course my true ship for Mel is Icarus. Which of
Icarus.
course, and they did just have a conversation where I'm at with her where they're like, obviously we're all poly, and they're like, obviously we're not dumb humans. We're like okay with being poly. None of us would ever ask the other to commit themselves to someone.
I didn't know Icarus was part of that as well. But oh my
Well,
god.
I don't know about Icarus, but that was a conversation between other characters. But for me, I love the OTP, and for me that's Mel and Icarus.
Same. I think so. It's not implied. They talk about it at least to the point where I'm in at the game. Is that Mel has a damaged arm. It's made of like psyche and magic at this point, and we learn that the reason her arm is like that is because at one point Icarus and her either they were together or just very good friends, but she tried to raise him from the dead, make him whole, And
I don't think I caught
oh
that.
my god, she tried to make him whole and damaged her and hurt herself in the process, and that's why Icarus left and is out on his own. But since he's been out on his own, he's made his own wings. He's been doing okay. And they have, I mean, I have screenshotted every single conversation that they have had because they're just so full of yearning and
Yeah,
like
it's the yearning
the
for
sweet
me.
pain of like he keeps saying like, "Oh no, your arm never healed. Like I thought I could never return because of this, blah blah blah." Also, he said, "Well, you look great," and then got really like flustered about it.
I just wish he was a little hotter.
He's hot to
He
me.
kind of is like a little bit like a drowned kitten.
I mean, to be fair, he did drown. That's how he died.
I guess that's true. But like, but he's not still drowning.
He's drowning in his yearning for Mel.
Which also, I only just put this together. The first time you run into Apollo, Mel is like, ugh, not Apollo. And at first I was like, oh, do they like have a history? But like,
You're
yeah, they
so
have a
right.
history because of Icarus.
You're so right. I didn't put that together. Kill me. Kill me. Anyway, at a certain point, after progressing your conversations with Icarus, then you can have a conversation with Hecate where Mel asks about, hey, just so you know, I saw Icarus, and Hecate assures you that she doesn't hold any grudges against Icarus for what happened. So he's fine to come back if he wants. So I'm hoping that means he'll be able to visit at the crossroads and then they can be in love. I need them.
Annie's hiding her face behind her shirt. I hope they can be in love. I hope so too. I hope that Icarus is like, you know, her husband and then Moros is like her boyfriend.
My only question is her relationship with Odysseus meant to be romantic as well? You can take naked baths together, but I kind of can't tell. And he's always talking about how he's attracted to witches.
I know, that's why I also am unsure. Like it seems like at first I was like no way. He seems like a father figure kind of because he's also been around since she was like a child.
Yeah, like he taught
Um
her how to fight.
yeah, but then they're also kind of flirty and he does say that he has a fondness for witches, which sort of makes me feel like yes, they have a vibe, but I don't know that I've gotten to the point of they actually with the War Song update, I think, added some more story opportunities for improving your relationship. Because I was like locked at max hearts with a number of them, and then through my recent gameplay, have been leveling them up a little bit more, and they seem like they're sort of at the end ish of those opportunities. But I'm not sure yet with Odysseus, or if it'll just be like a kind of weird uncle niece relationship.
Another relationship that I've been waiting for them to address story wise, but actually really hasn't come up in dialogue, and I'm kind of wondering if it will once I unlock Ares up in Olympus. The Hephaestus Ares Aphrodite love triangle. Are you familiar with this?
No,
Aphrodite and Hephaestus are married.
I
I
didn't
forget
know that.
exactly how that came up, but Aphrodite and Ares are lovers. So she's like constantly cheating on Hephaestus, and there are a lot of myths about like him trying to catch them together, and then like the fallout of that. Some of the other background stuff going on in this screwed up family is that Hera, when Hephaestus was born, because Hephaestus is her son, looked at him and she was like, "You're ugly." So she chucked him off a cliff, but he didn't die. Which actually, I gotta say, I love his design in this game. He's in a wheelchair and has this awesome, like, amphora inspired prosthetic leg. And he looks so cool. Can't believe she looked at that son and was like, ugly, and chucked him off a cliff. The cliff being Mount Olympus.
Yeah, I don't know if they've addressed that besides the fact that like in this Aphrodite's design, she looks rad. She's fully nude except for like thigh-high boots and a shield. And then she has the Ares war paint over her eyes, which feels like a very clear signal of like her attachment to Ares, where I think in Hades it was like sort of becoming a thing. I don't know that I've seen anything from Hephaestus or Aphrodite, but I don't often get Hephaestus boons. And so it might just be that I haven't had one of his boons while talking to Aphrodite or vice versa.
We get a little bit of the background of Hera's divisiveness as a mother of the family because Hercules shows up, or do they call him Hercules or Heracles? Technically, it should be
Heracles.
Heracles, yeah, the Greek. So he shows up in the surface levels and sometimes just wails on enemies for you, and you get a little money for it. He
And
has
then you
something to
accidentally get hit with his big bat and get dizzy.
ow. He always has something to say, especially if you've got a Hera boon. Because do you know the Heracles background? Like his story?
Vaguely. I mean, I just know that he's the son of Zeus, and so presumably Hera was like, I hate that.
Exactly, because Hera hates it when Zeus cheats on her, and Zeus's favorite
Which is
pastime
constantly.
is cheating on her. So you can see how this might cause some issues. And yes, Heracles is a son of Zeus. Hera hates him because of that and what he represents. So Heracles is just living his normal life, married to his wife Megara, no relation to the Fury, and at one point makes him go insane, like bestows upon him like a she curses him, goes into a blood frenzy, kills his wife and maybe his kid if he had a kid. And then in order to atone for his crime of killing his wife that Hera made him do, he then has to go through 12 or 13 labors. I forget the exact number, but it's one of those. And so in his design, we see him wearing a lion coat, which he's very often depicted in like classical statues as well. That's the skin of the Nemean lion, which was one of the trials that he had to go through to kill. So then once he completed those trials, he was ascended to godhood, sort of, which is something he also talks about in his dialogue here. But specifically, he hates Hera because she never accepted him as a son and, in fact, made him go through all this shit and killed his wife. So he has a lot of scorn for the gods, even though he's technically part of them now, and that comes up. But I'm wondering when I'm like, let's get into specifics. Let's air the dirty laundry, please. I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking about Nemesis, but I love that when she shows up on your travels, sometimes she's just like, man, I really need to hit something right now. Can I hit you? And and if you agree, she'll pay you. So she'll just give you a big whack with her axe and then give you money and then leave.
I love that sometimes she steals what you want to buy at the shop. It's so petty.
I get really excited about Greek mythology.
I know, I appreciate it about you.
Thank you. So I'm just happy that they're playing around in my area of not expertise, just area of enthusiasm.
Yeah, the thing I was gonna say when we were talking about, like, you feeling at first like, oh no, what if it's just a cash grab? Like, Greek mythology is such a big world to play in, and there's so many, like, gods that they didn't get to include in the first one. It makes a lot of sense to me that they would want to continue in that world to explore more of that.
Mm-hmm. You're right. So mostly we've been sitting here loving it. But do you have any criticisms so far of the game that you're holding on to?
I think that comment about the art that you sent me really rang true for me about the shading, because there was something that just felt a little too soft about some of the character portraits, in that they were like still beautiful, still absolutely love the designs. They just felt a little too soft in comparison to like the style of Hades, which I know like it doesn't have to be like the style of Hades. They're in a different sort of area. It makes sense with the moonlight. But it was sort of not rubbing me the wrong way. It like is such a nitpick, but it did feel like a little soft. And so I like how they've been making small changes.
Mm-hmm.
Dionysus's bulge, it's too big.
Please honestly send them a message about that. I haven't seen it yet, but if they've ruined my precious.
Like, it looks like it's all balls.
No. That's so why would
You
you
know,
tell
it's
me
not
that?
like a sweatpant bulge. It's like, it's all balls.
Why would you tell me that?
I'm just scrolling through my notes to see. This is not a criticism. Okay, two things. This is maybe a little bit of a criticism, but I think it actually makes sense. I wrote down that I can't believe Moros is so hot and his voice is so dorky. And then also I wrote down, I desperately want Mel to fuck her cousin Artemis.
I think the thing is, because you've had a big, big crush on Artemis since the last game. Don't you just want to fuck Artemis? You don't have to make Mel do it.
No, but I also want Mel to. I want them to kiss.
They very easily could. They're already literally singing duets together. That was something that was added in this update. There's a little area on the crossroads where sometimes Artemis shows up and just starts singing. Speaking of singing, we didn't really talk about the music of this game, but I love that they took Ashley Barrett and made her a boss in this game. Because one of the guardians is Scylla, like Scylla or Scylla, I
Oh,
forget,
yeah.
of Scylla and Charybdis fame, which, by the way, also an Odyssey thing, plus some sirens, and so she sings at you as she tries to kill you, and that has been stuck in my head for the last week again. There's lines about, like, the chorus is like, I am going to claw out your eyes and drown you, and it's really good.
I think I need to go. So when I first started playing, I was listening to the music a lot, and then I was playing a lot, and so I was listening to podcasts while I played. And then recently I've been listening with the sound on again, and I think I may have never fought the sirens with the sound on, which I feel really
You
bad about now, and I
gotta.
should go do it.
It suits it really well too, because the way the siren battle works is that there's two band members, a drummer and a guitarist, and then Scylla, the singer, and you have to if you defeat one or the other, it goes dead for a while and then comes back. But when, for example, you kill the drummer, the drums fall out. Or when
Oh, that's
you yeah,
great.
when you kill the guitarist, then the guitar sounds stop. Or if you kill Scylla first, then the vocals stop while the rest of the music goes. So it's very cool.
That's awesome. I do feel like some of the music, I think I'm not appreciating it as much as I should. I think, again, it's so hard with a sequel because you're just like comparing it to the first one. Hades had much more like driving bass that I really enjoyed. It felt really like rad. And then I like a lot of the music in this as well, but it just doesn't hit quite the same chord, if you will, with me. Okay, and then my other, like, the dumbest, pettiest, nitpickiest critique I have is that I feel like Mel's face looks weird in anything but her default expression.
I agree, actually.
I think it, like, her proportions look kind of funny.
There's a kind of like thoughtful face that she makes sometimes, and it's a cute expression, but it doesn't look like her.
Yeah, and then same thing with her smile. She looks like really angular, and her perspective looks her proportions look kind of awkward. So anytime she's like anything but like persistent looking, she looks a little funny to me.
Her bath time portrait is cute.
Yeah. Maybe it's just the lipstick. Like she wears green lipstick and so it that just might look a little funny as so maybe it's also like her hair gets a little bit more askew in some of those and I'm used to her having a very like sleek cap of hair. But it's such a like I don't know, you ask for criticisms and I'm like, I don't like when she smiles.
Women should smile less, actually. I don't really have criticisms for the mechanics except to say that I miss certain gods and boons that aren't a part of this game, and I understand that it's a new game, so of course they're going to try new things instead. One of my criticisms is more about the writing style overall, and what I did find was also an issue to me from Hades, which is that although I love all of the characters individually, I love how much there is to read of dialogue between them. I think it does really shy away from the difficult parts of what it could draw on. And I was always hoping for like a little deeper conflict than whatever we got. Even with Hades, this is my fan fiction version of Hades, how it would end if the game mechanics didn't hold this back, because one thing that the game both does really well and also still struggles against is the fact that it is a roguelike, so there's this repetitive live, die, repeat thing going on, and your story has to somehow function and move forward even within that narrative of everything staying the same and happening over and over again. In my wildest dreams, Hades 1 would have had to confront the fact that Demeter had been kept in the dark about her daughter's continued existence and her grandson's existence for years and years, and the anger that she expressed would boil over and she'd be the real final boss of Hades. Because story-wise, that's what would be cooler. But that can't be what happens because Hades is about Hades and beating him over and over again until the story is done. In this one, I'm wondering if they might take a swing and break from that, and we can't tell yet, but I am fearing a bit that it wouldn't take a swing like that where something at the end was different or a real conflict was addressed, because it isn't addressing like the background conflict things that I know probably should be mentioned, like the Ares Hephaestus Aphrodite situation or Hera's treatment of her own children, although it looks like we'll get treatment of Heracles. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know why my issue is everyone is just being so nice.
One thing that just occurred to me that I do think is a weakness is that in the first Hades, you had interpersonal conflict with your father, Hades, and in Hades 2, you don't have much of that. You have like your rivalry with Nemesis, but that's sort of it's not, deeply emotional. It's just sort of a rivalry. You have conflict with, sides of the family in the sense of the Titans versus the gods, but not in a way that feels very important to Mel's own personal development. And so I hope that there's more that happens that's interesting through learning a little bit more about what was happening in the House of Hades before they were attacked, that maybe lends like a little bit more drama to it. Like I like them all being happy and getting along and having sex or whatever they're up to, but I think it could benefit I think it would keep me a little bit more engaged in the story aspects, because I do tend to, like, if I'm going through a bunch of runs and I'm like really locked in, maybe I'm listening to a podcast, I'm not, even if I weren't, I'm speeding through the dialogue a little bit, even though the dialogue is really good, but it's just like at a certain point, if it's not connecting to an overarching storyline that's moving along, I'm just going to rely on the people online that are dissecting every little bit of dialogue. And it's like, I think I want less subtext and more text.
Yeah, that's a good point about the main foe not being as closely intertwined with Mel, because it is in that she wants revenge on Kronos to restore her birthright, take back her family's home, and free her family and many of their friends, because Kronos is holding them. I think rightly so, they're withholding the information from us during early access about that part of the story. It's implied that there's something going on with Zagreus, for example, and my dearest hope, well, I always thought, maybe this is just how I write, but going into this game, I was thinking, so what's the worst thing that could happen? And to me, the worst thing that could happen would be that actually Zagreus is the final boss. Like, enthralled to Kronos, and you have to fight your own brother, the brother that was also you, that we were so close to throughout the first game. And that hasn't happened, though it is implied that there's something in Zagreus's room that sends you back to the crossroads after you beat Kronos. They got me that way kind of with one of the Guardians on the way, which is you have to fight Cerberus, an enraged version of Cerberus. And I almost laughed when after you defeat Cerberus, he just turns to normal. There's a puff of dust and he's just normal, happy Cerberus after the fight. Not that I want something bad to happen to Cerberus, because it's still quite heartbreaking to find that that's the state he's in most of the time. But I was also like, but that's so pat and nice. I don't know, it would feel more meaningful if it all weren't so pat and nice each time.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll have to fight Zag at some point?
I don't know, that's what I thought. I thought that he would be a boss somewhere, but that was before I hit Cerberus, and I feel like the same thing of him being like enthralled to Kronos or something like that just wouldn't be satisfying, because we already see that with Cerberus.
Hmm.
So I don't know. There could be something interesting about like maybe he became sympathetic to Prometheus, and like because there is actually a conversation that I just went through where Mel's talking to Odysseus, and he's like, "Does Prometheus seem sane?" Like, and
Mm.
it's not clear. They have a conversation that it's not clear how he got out, and they're like, "We assume Kronos's forces released him, but he's not like a hired thug either." So maybe I could see like Zag having sympathy for Prometheus and having like released him, which triggered this crumbling. I don't know. This is where people will listen back to this and be like, "You fools," and your incorrect predictions.
I think that my predictions will always be incorrect here because I will want to predict more dramatic things than what will actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I had one other brief criticism,
Mm.
again, and more of a nitpick than anything, but now I can't even remember it, so it must not have been that important at all. I also know that for recording today, I was sitting there thinking to myself, man, I'm really excited to talk about this game, but also all I want to do is just be playing this game.
Hmm.
Sorry, I have to skip Hades 2, recording 2, play more Hades 2, more and more until it's out as a full game, and then I guess I'll play it again.
Yeah, I think when it comes out in its full release, I bet I will start a new save
Yeah.
and then play it again. Or I would really enjoy my giving my partner a turn at it and watching him play. Might be fun too.
Right on. My sister has just started playing the first game and is very, very annoyed because Hypnos is giving her a lot of the same get good advice that I have given her over the years, except it happens every time she dies. And I wish I were there on the couch watching her play that right now, and then hopefully I could do the same for when there's Hades too.
Oh, we forgot to talk about Hypnos. I can't wait till Hypnos wakes up.
Yeah, so one of the only House of Hades residents that made it out of there is Hypnos, who is in a deep coma. I got to the point in the game where I could make a potion to try to wake him up. When you do, you enter a weird dream of his, which was so funny. But yeah, it hasn't come up again to move that forward in any way. I want him to wake up so bad. He's probably the key to this whole thing. He probably knows something, you know? I'm gonna scream.
Until the full release.
Until the full release. And, well, for next time.
Okay. Bye!